And I've brought you out here to a special spot because I do believe that places have stories or places have connections, and we've been doing this for a while now. Um, the first thing I want you to notice behind me is that we're in what the Bible calls the wilderness. We've been on the Sea of Galilee, we've been in Jerusalem. This is another different aspect of this amazing land. This is the desert, the wilderness. And when you read the Bible correctly, you see that the wilderness is the staging area for things that happen later. This is the wilderness where John the Baptist got everything ready. This is the wilderness where Jesus spent the 40 days and 40 nights. This is the wilderness where a young prince named David was running away from a crazy king. And the wilderness, the quietness, the bleakness, the desert of the wilderness is what's going to tie some of the places together, because this is not just a wilderness, this is a special place. And what I'd like to do is kind of just do a 360 and see if we can connect how all of this comes together. Let's start over here on the side, because if you look behind me right now, what you see spread out in the background is the city of Jericho. The city of Jericho is the oldest inhabited city in the world. There's an argument about how old it is. We've actually found a tell in the middle of Jericho that has walls that have fallen over. I mean, we've all heard that story. But just behind Jericho on the far side, okay, what you can see is the valley, the Syrian-African rift. We've mentioned that in the last movie. And this valley actually runs from north to south and is the main divider between that side and this side. That valley actually has the Jordan River, and that's where the children of Israel crossed over and entered the Holy Land. And the first thing they did is fought the Battle of Jericho. I mean, we all grew up on the same songs. But this is where they come into the Holy Land. And it's not by chance that Jericho also sits on the main intersection between the roads to the east and the west and the roads to the north and the south. Today, the city of Jericho politically is in a different situation. Jericho, together with other parts of what we call the West Bank, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later, has been handed over to the Palestinian Authority and all the complexities of the political situation here. So the children of Israel cross over just behind me, enter the Promised Land, and conquer the pieces of the Promised Land that were given to them, and create this amazing story that we're going to talk about. But the way I like to put it together is that, like everything else, things come together because on the other side, and let's see if the camera will follow me over here, if you look behind me now, you can see the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is the lowest place on earth. The Dead Sea is this saltwater lake where I mean, everything floats. It is the famous emblem or symbol, and a lot of you who have been here have been to the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea actually is part of that divider. The other side of the ridge has the hills of Moab and the hills of Edom. And I'm going to go around a little bit more and see if I can make one more connection. Because, again, I like the way the biblical stories come together. I am now facing Jericho, but the road you see behind me is the road to Jerusalem. The road to Jerusalem that leads basically originally from the east, and the continuation of this road to the east goes all the way up to Amman and to Jordan, and from there to the rest of the Middle East, and in that direction goes up to the holy city of Jerusalem. And if you look closely, look behind me, you can see trenches and bunkers, and I'm actually sitting on an Israeli military position. And there's a bunker here because until probably about 10, 15 years ago, the state of Israel was afraid of an all-out attack by the Arab world on that side towards Jerusalem on this side. And I still remember I was stationed here as a little baby lieutenant when I was a little bit younger, and I know all of these positions. I could point out from here tank ramps and tank firing positions. The road to Jerusalem was actually mined with explosives in order to stop the enemy. Until a little while ago, we were literally afraid that we would be wiped out by the Arab world, who said they were going to wipe us out again and again and again. Today that seems ludicrous, and even today, standing here on this military installation that has been abandoned because there's no need for it, because there is no threat today from Arab nations coming from this way. And we're actually signing peace treaties with more and more Arab nations on that side. After we understand all of this, it makes sense, okay, that the world, that Israel, that everything is changing. And you don't need to be a genius to open up your Bibles and see how all of this is coming together. So the BaLaGaN connection, Jericho on one side, the Dead Sea on the other side, Jerusalem in the middle, and a peace that is spreading out, I guess, to the rest of the Middle East, that's going to bring a new situation as soon as possible. Down in the valley, and we're going to head there in a few minutes, is the baptism site where, according to tradition, Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist and starts his ministry here in the desert. But from here, like we said before, it ripples out and spread out to the rest of the world. So what do you say? Let's go down to the river and connect a few more pieces. So we're walking down to another very interesting site. It's a site where a lot of different things connect together. It's one of the hottest places in the country, and we're at one of the lowest places on earth. And this site is going to connect quite a few different things, because I'll take you around the corner here and introduce you to the Jordan River. And we'll be connecting to the Jordan River in different places. We'll talk about the Jordan River up in the north. But right here, we're the closest spot to where the Jordan River connects to the Dead Sea. This is the closest spot of the Jordan River to the city of Jerusalem. And this is a spot where, according to everything that we understand, this happens. And I'm going to read this from Matthew chapter 3. And well, the backdrop of this is John the Baptist was in those days preaching in the wilderness of Judea, which is right just behind us, saying, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." And I'm going to jump to verse 13, and it says this: "And Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan River to be baptized by him. And John tried to prevent him, saying, 'I need to be baptized by you, and you're coming to me?' But Jesus answered and said, 'Permit it to be, for thus it is fitting for us to fulfill all the righteousness.' And he allowed him. And when he had been baptized, Jesus came up out of the water. And behold, the skies were opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And suddenly a voice from heaven said, 'This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased.'" And like other things, this is a unique spot. This is where Jesus starts his ministry. And it's very fitting, like everything else in the BaLaGaN connection, that this takes place here at this unique spot. The geography says the Syrian-African Rift, the geography says the Jordan River, the geography says the Dead Sea, the geography says the Judean wilderness. But this is also a spot where different events also take place. The children of Israel, after spending 40 years in the desert, couldn't decide who, what, where, come up that side of the Jordan River, and according to one of the traditions, and if not exactly here, somewhere in this vicinity, they cross over from outside to inside the Promised Land. If you remember the whole passage where, you know, the priests step in the water with the Ark of the Covenant, and the water stops and they cross over, it's very fitting that Jesus starts his ministry in the same place where the chosen people actually entered into the Promised Land. Another interesting story that always connects to here that I find amazing is the whole transfer of the mantle from Elisha to Elijah. And I don't know if you remember, they both come down to the Jordan River, and Elijah holds out the mantle and they go over to the other side. And that's where Elijah is taken up in a chariot. And Elisha comes back with this new ability, with this new understanding, with this new wisdom. And here's where he holds out the mantle, stops the water, and crosses over. Again, this is where it all connects. And in the way that I always find interesting, though, this is also the connection between Israel in the west on that side and the rest of the Arab world on that side. Because if you look closer, you can see the little platform over there behind me. And in the trees up there, you can actually see a Jordanian flag. We're actually on the border between us and the Hashemite kingdom of Transjordan. And every once in a while, you can actually see Jordanian soldiers walking down here. And again, we're in the North tourist period, but on most days you would see thousands of tourists on this side, thousands of tourists on that side, and the little kind of stream of water separating the two countries. There's Jordanian soldiers on this side, there's Israeli soldiers on this side, but I'm going to say this, until a couple of years ago, this was a closed off border. Today, this is open. Today, actually, I was on the other side last year, and I actually looked at this side from the other side. And what I'm trying to say is there's a whole new connection between what's going on this side of the river and what's going on that side of the river. And again, we talked about that. The state of Israel has actually signed a peace treaty with Jordan, signed a peace treaty with Egypt, and now is signing a peace treaty with nations that are even further away from where we are right now, in the Persian Gulf, the UAE, and Bahrain. And what's happening is a whole new reshift of the connection between the chosen people in Promised Land and their neighbors around them. And again, like everything else, it's very interesting that all these different connections come together here in one of the hottest places in the country. Look at this, I'm sweating like crazy here, and brings all of this to life. So, this is David Tal. This is the BaLaGaN Connection on the Jordan River, overlooking a new Middle East that is actually coming together right in front of us, and hoping to see you here as soon as possible. Hoping that the BaLaGaN is going to be over soon, and hope to see you here.